Welcome everybody back to the second installment of my Minecraft Hardcore series. Today, I will be walking you through what I managed to accomplish during these next 100 days. If you have not seen the first episode in this series, it is linked in the description and I highly encourage you to view it before viewing this one. Even though I'd say the quality is garbage. Or, if you would like to hear about where I've been for the past year now, check out my Where Have I Been video. But if you don't have time for that, here's a quick recap of the last 100 days.
Yeah, it's rewind time.
To start this series, I settled down in this birch forest on top of an isolated hill. I built my base up, mined plenty of ores, and had a fair amount of scares. The biggest scare of which is after I established my new village, and I had the great idea of walking into town with a bad omen effect. I honestly should have died this day, and I technically did several times. These guys kicked me out of my own base for a couple days before I came back for revenge and took it back. With that behind me, I managed to fight and defeat the Ender Dragon with relative ease. To end the last 100 days, I challenged you guys to subscribe and comment what you liked about the video, and you would be placed in the new structure I built, which is now called the Subscriber Hall. Congratulations to Galaxy Gaming and Squid559 for subscribing on the last video. You will be placed in the hall later in the video. And since Galaxy Gaming was the first person to subscribe on that video, he will have his name placed also on the trophy pedestal. If you want to be placed in the world same as these guys, subscribe and comment on this video about what you liked about the video, and I will place you in next time. Without further ado, let's begin at day 101. To begin day 101, I loaded up the world exactly as I left it nearly 4 months ago. I was excited to explore the new 1.17 update and use some of the blocks that it had to offer. But today was all about taking care of business and gathering my senses of the world. As I said I would, I placed Galaxy Gaming's name on the trophy pedestal, and then proceeded to place both names in the subscriber hall. Once again, I thank you for your subscriptions. I then went about exploring my base again to figure out what I needed to start doing next. I cleaned out some of the chests and reorganized before heading down to start mining for more materials that I would need. On day 102, I continued the mining trip that I started at the end of day 101. I did not find much of importance other than an axolotl that I kidnapped. I then headed to the surface to sleep off the night. On day 103, I smelted all the materials I found mining yesterday and began organizing the chests a little better. After that, I thought it'd be useful to put together a list of objectives for these next 100 days. These objectives will change later, but consist mainly of improving the walkways around my base, build some type of mob farm, build a rudimentary auto smelter without YouTube help, possibly building walls around the villager base to help prevent villager deaths, get netherite armor, possibly begin working on a better base nearby, and finally, defeat the Wither. After that, I headed my way into the nether to begin gathering materials to upgrade the pathways. I had a unique idea of how to improve these walkways if it worked out. I mined quite a bit of glowstone to help get me started and return home as quickly as I left. My idea for these paths was to have some kind of automatic lighting system set up, so when the sun would set, the lights would automatically turn on, and I knew just how to do that. Using daylight sensors, I would wire them up directly to the redstone lamps under the path. And using the stone I collected from the mining trip before, I would also upgrade all the paths to stone bricks. And I continued working on this all the way until day 108. On day 108, when the pathway upgrades were complete, I headed back into the nether to collect a couple more nether quartz for my next project. I was looking to begin automating many parts of my base, and an auto sugarcane farm was the next best thing to begin working on. Using the quartz from the nether, I crafted observers to use them on the farm. The whole idea was that the observers would sense when the sugarcane had grown, and then they would power a piston which would break the sugarcane. It is a very simple farm that will passively generate sugarcane over time. I got to work and began building the structure for it on day 108, and continued on until day 110, since I had a couple of design flaws to work out. With the sugarcane farm complete, it was now time to begin my next project, the auto smelter. The auto smelter I was wanting to build required an automatic bamboo farm. While bamboo is inefficient in a furnace, it grows quick and gets the job done just the same as coal or wood. However, the hard part was finding it. I searched for days and days, coming across countless villages to sleep in, but no jungle. My elytra, even with unbreaking and mending on it, was struggling to keep me in the air. It wasn't until day 114 that I found a jungle biome with bamboo in it. And then it was time for the long trek home with a basically broken elytra. On the way back, I found a treasure map that I stopped by at. I mined the entire beach up and did not find the treasure. It wouldn't be until day 116 that I made it home. I organized what I found during the journey and headed into the nether to mine more quartz that I would need. This bamboo farm would be of similar style to the sugarcane farm, but with one twist. I would need an automatic delivery system. Well, I could have used a line of hoppers to get the job done. I thought it would be funner to use a minecart loop to deliver the fuel and ores to the system. I began clearing the forest on the other side of the hill to begin construction on probably one of the most hideous buildings I have ever built in this game. I'm not even going to commentate over some of this because just looking at what I'm building just makes me want to never play this game again. I've been playing Minecraft for nearly 10 years now, and I still build like I just got the game. It was day 124 before the monstrosity was complete. After that, I began clearing out a spot above my storage and blacksmith area to house the new auto smelter. I also then built a tunnel to allow minecarts to supply the furnaces and fuel from the farm. I then built a rail in the storage room for the materials to be sent to the smelter. And with a little trial and error, I got the smelter done and looking good on day 133. On day 134, I began clearing out the dark oak forest nearby, not only to restock on wood, but it's going to be the site of what I would call one of my mega projects of this series. Do you remember that objective to build a better base nearby? Well, this will be part of it. I'm looking to build a large palace with walled villages, a pier with built ships in it, the whole 9 yards. And getting the forest out of my way was the first step in the process, and I mined it for several days. While I was cutting down the forest, I was visited by the weirdos that kicked me out of my base last episode, and we had a very intense stare-off. I stored the wood I collected and used it to finish off the structure for the auto smelter. On day 138 and 139, I traveled to new lands to explore the new caves brought with the 1.17 update. And in no time, I was able to find one of the amethyst geodes. I mined it for all it was worth and took home plenty of copper as well. On day 140, I began expanding the bamboo farm. The farm itself was working just fine, but I needed more bamboo to be produced to keep up with the demand. So I spent the next 3 days fixing things up down below. On day 143, the raiders showed up again. Instead of staring them down this time, I decided to take them on to get the achievement. While they did still get some decent hits on me, I was better prepared this time to take them on, and soon after I sent them packing. And on day 145, I took full advantage of the Hero of the Village perk, and got as many mending books as I could afford. I then took the time to fix the place up and organize my storage and such. I then took a look at the achievements I needed to complete for this world as well. That is also one of my goals that I did not write on the wall, but it is one of my goals on this playthrough. Getting every achievement is a great feat on its own in a normal world, but in hardcore it's something else. You do not get a do-over in hardcore. On day 145 and 146 after the raid, I began setting up some foundation ideas for the castle village I plan on building in the future. Nothing crazy, but just some rampart locations that I will use to give me an idea of the scale of this build. On day 147, I began working on the pier that would also be part of the mega project as well. Using all the wood that was overflowing my chests, I spent the entire day and the next day building the foundations of it. On day 149, I continued placing foundations around the area. This build is going to be astronomically massive. And from my plans, I'm not even done placing nearly half of the area of the build. To help better clear the forests quicker, I started a couple wildfires. And it spread faster than I thought it would. Soon the entire forest was covered in flames. For the next few days I continued more of the same, but this time we began placing the foundations of this staircase to the upper living portion of the castle. This will be where some of the nicer buildings will go, and the palace will not be far behind. On day 153, with the foundations of my project mostly done, I decided it was time to get some netherite. So I gathered plenty of beds and set off for the nether. I used those beds and some extra TNT I had laying around to clear out massive areas to search for netherite. I weaved my way through the small pockets of lava looking for what I needed. However, this is when I ran into an issue that has plagued this playthrough. In the nether, I seem to have some terrible frame drops for no apparent reason. This not only lags my screen, but it lags the audio too. Eventually, I did not trust myself to not walk in the lava while I was lagging, so I decided to head back home and give it another try another day. But I was able to muster enough ore to upgrade my chestplate and leggings to netherite. Now here is where things get a little weird. Somehow I lost some days of recording in between that nether expedition to what you see now. The footage you are now seeing is day 160. And on that day, I decided to begin gathering an obscene amount of stone and begin work on the mega project. I believe I started mining around day 155, and now it was day 160. So I had a solid amount of stone in my shulkers. On day 163, I then headed home to smelt the materials I needed, and began work on some of the walls of the project. Now keep in mind, I'm no master builder when it comes to this kind of stuff. I will, however, use a couple tutorials on some of the main points of the project, but most of this will be of my own creation. Like I mentioned in the first episode, I want to better my skills of building during this playthrough. At the end of the day, I created the first rampart of the base, with a lot more to go. On day 164 and 165, I continued working on the walls of the project. This will be a common theme for the rest of the video, so I'll try and make it as interesting as possible, by deciding to go kill the Wither. But there was one problem though. I did not have enough Wither skulls. Time to go back into the Nether once again. This time, hopefully with less lag spikes. On day 166, I decided to go search the fortress for Wither skeletons, and that is when I finally got my first skull. But after I got that first skull, no more Wither skeletons wanted to spawn for me. So on day 167, I took it upon myself to go find another Nether fortress. But instead of finding what I was looking for, I found plenty of piglin bastions. I even found some netherite that I could use for later. I raided all of them as quickly as I could and continued my expedition for another fortress. But I simply could not find another fortress. I ended up running out of fireworks to propel myself with, so it was time to head back on foot. When I finally got back, I got back to work looking for Wither skeletons in the original fortress. And when I killed my first pack of Wither skeletons I came across, they dropped to me another head. So much for the long journey of looking for them. It was now day 170 and I continued my search for the last Wither head. But first I had to make a quick pit stop home to drop off some supplies. Now it's back on for the last skull. It took 2 days, and on day 172, with the last skull I found, I headed back home to prepare for the fight. From being used to fighting the Wither on the Bedrock edition, I was unsure how this fight would go. So I got all the totems I had in my possession and headed down to the first mine I ever made to summon the Wither. And with the last skull placed, the fight was on. And surprisingly, as you can see, it went very well. I did end up eating a golden apple just out of precaution when I lost a couple hearts. But other than that, the Wither was defeated just as fast as it was summoned. And on day 173, using the gold I got from the many bastions I raided, I created a beacon next to the trophy stand. If you, viewer, want this beacon to be named after you, go ahead and be the first subscriber and commenter on this video. Not only will you have your name on this beacon forever, you will also be placed in the subscriber hall in the next video. And now with the Wither out of the way, it was time once again to knock off another objective for this episode by building a creeper farm. I was in dire need of gunpowder and simply do not have the patience to travel on foot anymore. So on day 174 and 175, building the foundations of this new farm was my main priority. But the hardest part of this build was getting the cats up there. First, I had to find one, which was fairly easy since I had a village and another village close by. On day 176 and 177, after finding the first cat, the hunt was on for the second one. But I could not find one no matter where I went. So I decided to feed my villagers some more food and place down some more beds to see if that will trigger some cats to spawn. While I was waiting for the cat, I worked on the project a little more by building a gate right outside my village. Some time has passed, and while I was waiting, on day 179 I finally managed to tame another cat. I ever so slowly walked this mother and its kid to their new home, where they will be forced to populate our new farm. But when trying to drag them up the platform, this happened. But luckily when I hit the ground, the game blessed me and teleported it next to me before it hit the ground and died. So now the waiting game was on. And while I worked on the creeper farm, it was just a matter of time before it would be fully operational. So I waited. And after a few days, the cats were all in position to make this farm work. And it was done. On day 180, and basically for the rest of this video, it is now time to begin work on the project once again. I first started with the entrance again since that is where I left off last time. This road will serve as the main road all the way until the palace area with little offshoots to other districts. But the first order of business was getting the gates and walls done. Then, it was time to start working on one of the first towers next to the lake. I finished up the tower and continued to work on the main pathway. I had it connect to what I would call the market area right on the lake. I used the stone left over from the walls to raise up a platform above the lake a few blocks and started extending the path off of that. But soon on day 194 I ran out of blocks I needed to continue. So I headed into some new chunks to mine up the new deep slate blocks once more. On day 195 I continued working on collecting the deep slate and many other useful materials along the way. During the night of 195 I headed back home and continued working on the project. On day 196 I also once again continued working on the pathway to the main area. Like I said before, I have no main tutorial or blueprint I am following, so what you are seeing here might be different in the end. These last few days have been really tedious in the way of grinding materials and placing thousands of blocks. I'm looking to maybe start streaming these more boring parts in hopes to begin interacting with the community more. If you guys would like that idea, be sure to leave a like and comment that you would like to see that. But for basically the remainder of the days, I continued working on the project. Building wall after wall, rampart after rampart, and lengthening the path, this place was truly going to be just too large for only me to live in. So if you want your very own house in this world, just like the subscriber hall, subscribe and comment something funny in the comments below. Not only will you be the first person to have the beacon named after you, but they will also get a house named after them and put in the subscriber hall. So don't be too late. Subscribe and comment now and be forever enshrined in this world. And that just about brings us to the conclusion of these last 100 days. I apologize if it did not seem as interesting as the last 100, but I learned many things along the way. I also apologize for the long wait. My life got really busy last year. As I took my final look around the base, I headed back down to the subscriber hall once again to thank Galaxy Gaming and Squid559 for subscribing last video. Like I said, if you want to be featured in one of these videos, be sure to subscribe and leave a comment that you did. I thank you all for watching, and I hope to see you once again in the next installment of this series.